And we're live. So that didn't take very long today. So welcome to class. The 3 returning students are fantastic. I'm really excited that you're here again today. Today we're going to be talking about concession clauses. And you might not know because of the title, but I think once we get started, everyone's like, I know what that is. So that's my question first is, does anyone know what a concession clause is? What it does, any examples?
No.
Thank you for your honesty. I appreciate that. No, that's fine. That's fine. So why don't we just jump into this? I need to screen share for a second here. Concession clauses and share. Perfect. Looks like you can see this now, and I actually might see if I can make it a little bit bigger, because if we can, why not, right? Perfect. Okay, so concession clauses. What is a concession clause? I don't know, or we don't know. I should say you don't know. It says a concession clause helps give information that contrasts with other information. We also have a word that is very specific in English. It means contradicting. All right. Does anyone have any idea what contradicting, or does everyone understand the idea of what this is?
Maybe
yeah.
two different ideas.
Okay, yeah, good. Rafa, did you want to add anything?
Also, when you are talking about a subject or an idea and you need to make another point that contradicts your first statement, using although, even though, in spite or something, or but. Or
You're
something.
ruining my surprise, Rafa. Yes, that is 100% correct. So do you have any other information for me then?
No.
No? I'm sorry to cut you off there, but yes, no, you're absolutely right. I didn't think anyone would really understand, but yes, as you said, those are some of the things that we can use. So with that, it says, we use these types of clauses in many ways, all right? So you see that I have a number here. Oops, uh-oh. And now I don't know. Can I undo that? Oh, gosh. Anyway, so we can use these types of things in different ways. As you can see, I have numbers. I think there's 5 different ways, if I remember correctly. And the first one is probably the easiest, by using conjunctions. All right, so what I'll have you do here is maybe we'll go in opposite order today. So Rafael, can you please read this first example for us?
Even though she's on a diet, she's ate a donut.
Exactly. So she's on this diet, which is okay, sure. But then she ate something that's not healthy for her. So it's the idea of contradicting. Okay, it's kind of the opposite. Does anyone have any questions here? No, I love that everyone's so silent. It makes me it makes me think that everybody understands. So what I'll have someone do, maybe what I'll have, in this case, Rafa, because you're the second person, why don't you give us an example? And so, Ken, when Rafa reads the next example, I'd like you to think of an example and continue like that, okay? So he can concentrate on reading, and then you can concentrate on an example, make things a little bit more interesting today. So, Rafa, do you have any idea of an example with even though?
Even though you don't like rain, is necessary to the field, to the earth.
Necessary for the fields, absolutely. Yeah. Actually, that's a true statement if you really pointing that statement at me. Yes, absolutely. I hate the rain. Very good. So now what we'll do is, Ralph, I'll have you read this example. And like I said, Ken, you can go ahead and start thinking of an example for us, okay? So Rafa, whenever you're ready.
So I should make a sentence using even though.
No, using the next one here. This is what Rafa is going to read now. And so while he reads this, I would like you to start thinking of an example, just to give you some extra time.
Whilst he has enough money, he didn't want to buy a new car.
Okay, good. Yeah, and this is, I think I would pronounce this whilst. However, this word is used, look, my computer doesn't even like it. It's more British English. So, because mine's in American English, and we don't use this, but while and whilst, I think. All right, so good. Now, Ken, do you have an example for us?
Okay, while in this sense, while a typhoon hit here, the general election took place.
Okay. I'm trying, it's an okay sentence. I would almost use meanwhile in that case. And now if you're going to ask me the difference between meanwhile.
I mean, some people criticize because the postpone the election because it's very difficult for many people to go to the voting station.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of, even though.
Right, it is
yeah.
While, I'm trying to think if we can find maybe an even better example. Using the same structure, while it was voting, no, while we had elections yesterday, right?
Right, yesterday.
It was canceled due to the typhoon. Well, we had elections yesterday. It was canceled due to typhoon. Typhoon, right? That's I'm pretty sure that's spelled correctly. So I don't spell typhoon every day. So, so while we had elections yesterday, it was canceled.
I mean, it wasn't canceled.
Ah. And actually, I'm going to change the it to they because it's elections. Oof. It depends on how you look at it, because elections can be a singular thing as, a singular but plural noun. But it actually is one thing. So I might say they in the next sentence. So it wasn't canceled.
Right.
Oh. That doesn't work because it's not contradicting. But if we use the opposite example of that it was canceled, for example, then sure, we can, just because it's contradicting. Wow. Well, that is actually not very good. I think you're absolutely right. They should, when there's a natural disaster happening to the majority of the country, like you said, it should be canceled.
Yeah.
You can postpone like a week or something, or the next day, or I don't know. So. Interesting. All right. Well, good example, more or less. Maybe not exactly true because we did have to change it a little, but good. All right. So, any questions with while before we continue? And actually, I have a question as well. When I said, because Ken, your first example sounded better. Meanwhile, at least to me. Meanwhile, there were elections yesterday. I don't even remember what you said. Meanwhile. No, I don't like by meanwhile. But I was trying to ask the difference between meanwhile and while. Does anyone know? No one knows the difference?
The position in the sentence, I don't know, perhaps.
Okay.
I understand that be while can only be used in the beginning of the sentence. Is that okay or no?
Not always. I usually at the beginning, but it doesn't have to be. Because if I say, I went to the bathroom, meanwhile my friend bought some coffee. So in that case, no. Then it's in the middle. But I would say normally, yeah, it's at the beginning. So that could be one difference. Because while when used at the beginning or in the middle, I would say 50-50. I don't think one is more common than the other. The difference, unless somebody else is waiting, and no. Any other comments before Rafa, do you want to ruin my surprise again?
No, I have no idea.
All right, so it's good.
Meanwhile, is when you are talking about one specific period of time, for example, while she was washing his teeth, she was reading a book.
Good. And actually, he's brushing teeth to brush teeth. And it's actually funny because when I learned Spanish, I used the word that's literally brush, cepillarse. I'm not even pronouncing it right. But I use that, and I still say that I'm going to brush my teeth when here you use to wash. So false, well, I don't want to call it a false French, but I learned South American Spanish. So, and there it's perfectly fine. So, good. So yeah, meanwhile is more when it is during the exact moment or at the same time something else is happening. With while, even though it is very similar, it's a little bit different, and while is a conjunction, and which is what we're using it here. How we're using it here. And meanwhile is more of an adverb. Okay. So that's a little bit of the difference. That could also be a whole nother class with some similarities with some of these words, but that's basically the difference. All right. Let's see. I need to get back to this one. Okay. So good. So now why don't we go down? We'll continue. And let's see. Ken, it's your turn to read. And Rafael, it's your turn to think of an example. All right. So Ken, when you're ready, you can read this for us.
Okay. Although he wanted to go to the concert, although he hadn't heard of the group before.
Okay. So he's kind of contradicting his idea here. I don't know who this is, but I want to go. So it's not exactly, you know, if you don't really know the group, you're not always so anxious to do something, but that's okay. Any questions? Kyle, if you're ready, you can go ahead and tell us your example.
Although the test was extremely difficult, he managed to get a good grade.
Perfect. I really like that. It's a really wonderful example. And these are more common conjunctions, and so I think these are relatively easy. This one isn't used, I'm going to use as much. It's not as common as the other ones. So this one might be a little difficult. So Rafael, it's your turn to read the example. And Rafa, if possible, I'd like you to think of an example, okay?
Much as I know it's my fault, I didn't want to admit it.
All right, good. And honestly, when I first saw this, I was like, much as, I would say as much as I know it's my fault. And so to me, this doesn't even sound exactly complete. I feel personally that I'm missing something. So again, this is one of those moments in which I don't want to say this is a new phrase for a native person, but I would always have the word as in front of it. Okay, so if it does sound a little strange, it does to me too. So, so Rafa, Do you have any examples? Do you understand this?
So the example
Yeah.
would be, as I know myself, I know I am imperfect.
Much as I know myself, I know I am imperfect. Sure, you are contradicting. Well, actually, it's as much as I know I'm a great person, I do have my imperfections. Something along that line, but the idea was there. Okay, I would just change it a tiny little bit. I think you should maybe promote promote how great you are, and then kind of contradict yourself with the imperfections. But in general, good. Okay, I think that's pretty understandable. Any questions? I always ask if there's any questions, but I'm really serious. If you do have any questions, I'd like to know. All right, so now let me see. I think we have another one here. I actually think there's one more after this. So, Rafa, it's your turn to read, and then Ken, it will be your turn to do the example.
Though she's my best friend, she can be annoying at times, sometimes.
Exactly. So in this case, I just wanted to mention that at times is the same as sometimes. Okay, I just wanted to, like I said, I'm trying to use things that are a little bit more normal or naturally what comes out of my mouth as a native person. And so I just wanted to mention that. That's why I put sometimes in the parentheses. So I'd remember to mention that. Okay. So good. Questions, comments? Ken?
Sometimes though appears in the end of the sentence, like she's my best friend though.
Yeah, and that's actually, I would say, also contradicting. Yeah, we can move these. They don't have to be at the beginning. It's just my examples, they are at the beginning. So basically, she's my best friend. Though she can be annoying at times, I would agree with. We could move that. Or she's my best friend. She can be annoying at times, though. So sure, yeah, you're able to move that.
So it's not, is it a colloquial expression or, kind of formal English?
I would say this is colloquial, yes, or
Okay.
It's definitely not formal.
I see. Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Do you have an example for us, Ken?
Yeah, though I don't know the name of the band, I went to their concert.
Okay, yeah, good. That's contradicting the idea. So good. That one's a good example. So with that, I think, there is one more here. So Ken, can you please read? And then Rafael, sorry, you can start thinking of an example.
Okay. Even if I had the money, I wouldn't waste my money on such an expensive gift.
Questions, comments, or example?
What's the difference between even if and even though?
Oh, even though I had the money, even if. I would say even if is more hypothetical, because it's this is, if I had the money, I wouldn't waste my time. So this could be considered a second conditional. So it's a hypothetical situation, not necessarily true. And this, if it were, even though I had the money, I wouldn't, even though it means that you really did have the money probably physically with you, but you didn't want to spend, or you didn't want to waste the money. So it's more of a real situation. Even though I had the money, I didn't want to. Yeah, I would change the sentence. No. I didn't want to waste it on such an expensive gift. So there in the chat box, I had the beginning of that sentence. Does that help, Ken?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good. Glad I could think of that. So good. So Rafael, do you have an example for us?
Even if I were there, I wouldn't be able to help you.
Even if I were there. Okay. Yep. Good. So that's a really good example, contradicting your presence in that case. Oh, and there's another one. Look at that. All right. So Rafael, you can go ahead read this, and Rafa, you can think of an example. Okay.
Whereas I'm Mr. Margaret twin, Jane is a prettier one.
All right. I didn't really like this example because whereas isn't something I would normally use. So Rafa, if it's difficult for you, that's not a problem. In this case, we're contradicting the intellectual and physical parts of twins. Maybe they're identical. We don't know. It doesn't say, but people always compare twins. So, okay. Rafa, how are you doing with your example?
Well, I think whereas, I have a question. Whereas need to be continued by a noun better than a verb, whereas plus a noun or a verb.
Well, I think you need the subject here. Because Amy is the subject here, and then if we look in the other ones, even if I, though she, as much I, so I'm going to say you need a subject first.
Okay. The example could be, whereas Catalonia in my country is thinking in be separate, Spain wants to be going until the end.
Until forever and always. Yep, exactly. And again, are you thinking about or thinking of? Just not thinking in, all right? That's a common error here in Spain, but very good. Good example. All right. So with that, now we are going to go to the next part here. All right. And so this is using a structure in which we have an adjective or adverb. In the second part, we're using as or though, and then we use the subject and then the verb clause. So this is a lot going on. All right, so I'll read the first one. I think I have two examples here, so there's not a lot, but this makes me realize that English is just hard sometimes. So as much as Spanish is for me at times, this is one of those like, yeah. So basically, hard as somebody tried, for example, we'll say hard as she tried, she couldn't make it to the party. All right, so again, here to me, I'm missing as hard as she tried. So I don't know why it doesn't sound perfect to me. And also, if we say hard though she tried, that sounds terrible to me. As hard though she tried. So I don't really understand why it sounds good one way, maybe just that it's more common. But technically, this is the structure. And I don't understand why though it just sounds terrible to me. So I don't know if it depends on if it's an adjective, it should be as. If it's an adverb, it should be though. I'm going to go down and read this next one too, because again, it sounded better to me with using as. So we have difficult as though it was, difficult as it was. To move, we will be happier in a different home. All right? Or difficult though it was, again, it doesn't sound very good to me. And we're using both adjectives here, hard and difficult. So I think that's something to actually look up. Does anyone have any experience using this structure?
Yes, I think this is asked in the TOEFL such exam. Kind of, I think it's called conversion. As see a position conversed hard as. So I think it's a bit old style of maybe British, more British. I think. But the the kind of the effect of that is to beef up to reinforce the meaning. I've heard for this kind of
right, that she tried very hard. But to me, like I said, it's more as hard as she tried. That's what doesn't sound great to me. But good. Any other comments? I'm going to just look and see if I can find something quickly online. No other comments while I'm working on this? No? Let's see. Rafa or Rafael, have either of you seen this before?
No. No.
Not as I remember.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, this wasn't very common for me either. No, I don't think I'm going to find anything as quickly as I would like to. Yeah. All right. Well, I think I'll just stop there. Like I said, I don't have a lot of experience in this exactly, but this is one of the structures that we can use to contradict something. Okay. So in the first sentence, for example, she really wanted to go to the party, but she couldn't. And the same thing about the second one is, it was really difficult to move, but they know that they will be happier in a different home. So it's one of those difficult situations. All right. So any questions in general about these two statements? No? Okay. Well, in that case, let me go back to the presentation here and we will go down. All right, so now this one might be a little bit easier for you to understand, maybe a little bit more common. What we're doing is we're using the question words with ever, so however, whatever, wherever, whenever, etc. And we're going to express no matter what, where, when, why, etc. So it doesn't matter, basically. A lot of people think that the word whatever is actually negative, and I actually don't think it is. I remember working, and I would say, "Hey, is this ready?" I was a waitress, and she's like, "No, it's not quite ready." So, okay, whatever. No, it's fine. It's fine. It was just like I'm asking the situation. I'm asking about the situation. Is something ready to be served? And oh no, whatever. I'm not worried. It doesn't matter if it's ready or not. But she took it as something super negative. Like I was like, whatever, I don't care. And it was not like that at all. So I think it depends. And plus she was like 30 or 40 years older than me. So I think that might have had something to do with it. But nowadays, whatever is not considered very, very bad. All right. Okay, so what we'll do here, who read last? I think, Ken, you did the last example, so as far as I remember. So Ken, why don't you go ahead and read this for us, okay?
Okay, whatever you think of him, he's very outgoing and friendly.
And it was kind of difficult to think of a sentence for this just because there's no background information. All right, so I kind of had to invent the situation first. Ken, do you have any questions or comments?
Oh, no. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, well, the Rafaels or Rafas seem to be fine. So what we'll do is go down to the next one. And again, it's in the same structure. And so I'll have Rafael read this, okay?
Wherever you want to go on holiday, I always want to visit a spa.
So basically they're saying, I don't care where we go. I just want to go to a spa. Wherever we go, I always want to. So good. Would we like to think of examples? And again, in this part, we can use, let me go up here quickly. We can use other kinds as well. I mean, well, why ever doesn't exist. But however, whenever, whomever, actually, we can also use. Whoever wants to read can. So it doesn't matter who reads. It doesn't. It's fine, basically. All right. Is this clear? Is the structure clear at least?
Yep.
All right. Good. Have you heard of this before, Rafa?
Yes. Whatever. Whoever. Whenever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Good. Well, perfect. Well, I'm sure Rafael isn't speaking because he understands. So now we'll go.
I have just a quick question about that. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah.
Is there a rule about the comma in the middle of the sentence to split it between in a half or no?
Okay. Well, commas are kind of personal, actually. It definitely depends on where you want to pause the sentence. So say, whatever you think of him, he's very outgoing and friendly. You didn't pause. And so for me, if I say, whatever you think of him, he is very outgoing and friendly, kind of giving them this chance to understand the first part, whatever you think of him. I don't care what your opinion is. Now you're expressing your opinion. And for me, I love commas, and so I probably overuse commas. In this exact sentence, I'm thinking it is needed just because there are two different, I would say, clauses or parts of a sentence here. I'm trying to think. He's a very outgoing and friendly person. It's just because there's two different ideas here. That's why I'm using it. And again, I like to use commas. I should do a class about commas. Let me go ahead and put that into my my schedule that eventually I will be working with. The use of commas. Perfect. Does that kind of answer your question, Rafael?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, so with that now, we will look at the fourth part. Here we go. All right, so as I said before, this is something that will be a little more common, the in spite of and despite. Here we're using the noun phrase or ing, which we will see, plus, sorry, I don't think I want that plus there. To express contrast. All right, so we have two different examples here using in spite. And I think I'll read these just because I know what I want to talk about here. So in the first one, in spite of sleeping 8 hours, she was very tired. Now I want to show a little bit of the grammar here because this can be confusing. All right, so in spite of not sleeping 8 hours, she was very happy. All right, so it's the contrast here. So in the first sentence, she slept a lot, and then she was tired. So that's kind of strange. And then the opposite sentence, in the second sentence, we have the opposite situation where she didn't sleep 8 hours, and she was happy. She wasn't, I don't want to say tired, but she was in a good mood. Normally, when you're tired, you're probably not in the best mood. So that's the contrast here. Okay, any questions about this right now, about one of these two sentences, the structure, anything? No, nothing? Well, I suppose that's wonderful. I would actually like at least one of you, if not two or three, to think of an example with in spite of, and then also despite. I do like these And it's always really good to practice if possible. So do I have a volunteer to help me with another example? Yeah, Rafael?
In spite of his stubbornness, we managed to get along well with him.
Very good. And so your noun phrase in this case is his stubbornness, and that's very good. To me, I always immediately think of a verb with ing after this, just because I think it's more common for me, but that's what I was looking for that noun phrase in there. So perfect. Thank you very much, Rafael. Ken or Rafa, would you like to give this a try?
In spite of raining, I'll go to take a walk on the walk side.
All right, so I might say in spite of the rain.
Of the rain?
In this case. Or in spite of it raining.
It's raining, thank you.
And it would be referring to the situation of the rain. In spite of, I would use the rain in this case, and on the sidewalk. So very good. Good contradicting situation. Ken, do you have any questions, comments, or would you like to give us an example?
Okay. In spite of the typhoon hit, the general election took place.
Okay, good. And I'm going to correct your hitting. In spite of the general election, I'm sorry, in spite of the typhoon hitting, we still need to use that verb with ing. Okay?
Hitting, okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, sleeping, hitting, yes. Right.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes these are difficult. I know, for example, with the verb patterns, for example, with prefer. Prefer depends. You can use I prefer going, I prefer to go. So you can use these interchangeably. The thing is that I prefer not going to, or I prefer to not go to. So it's that not that is kind of confusing. And that's what I want to maybe talk about in this part, because it's basically the same situation. However, in this case, we have to use the ing for the verb because it's after a preposition. All right, so any questions about that? No?
No, thank you.
Okay, well, in that case, that's fine. So now we'll go down to despite, and now I don't remember who was supposed to read, so if I think, who read this sentence? Ken, did you read this sentence?
I think
no.
I read the sentence. I read the sentence.
You did? Okay, so then Rafa, it's your turn to read. Why don't you just read the first one, and then Ken can read the second one, so everyone can get a chance.
Despite sleeping 8 hours, she was very tired.
Yeah, so again, this is the same example. It's just with despite, okay? If you had caught on to that. Ken, can you read this one, please?
Despite not sleeping 8 hours, she was very happy.
And so the reason I have these 4 sentences, basically, well, 2 and 2, the same, just because I want everyone to see that we can use either in spite of or despite. And then it continues the same. Okay, so we can have the noun clause despite his stubbornness, as Rafael had said, blah, blah, blah. All right, or despite with a verb plus ing. Good, so any questions with despite, in spite of, or anything like that that we need to discuss?
So
No?
both
Oh,
to in spite of and despite, the meaning of the then are same, mostly same.
Yes.
Same. Okay, I got it.
Yeah, basically exactly. They're like twins, but they're just different. All right, they're basically the same, but just a little different. So, perfect. Well, that will lead us to the last part here. Oops. And basically, I'll show you everything, which is fine. So using adverbs and adverbial phrases. We have all the same. So Rafael, please read this example for us. All the same.
We had a very busy weekend, but a great time all the same.
Good. And then Rafa, can you read nevertheless, please?
Nevertheless, we live in a safe neighborhood, but we should have security cameras, nevertheless.
Any questions about these two parts, these two sentences?
I haven't heard the problem with nevertheless. What is the exactly the meaning of nevertheless in the sentence? It show an opposite idea or no?
Well, let me use a different sentence. Okay, so basically, even though we live in a safe neighborhood, we should have security cameras. So the contradicting idea here is that it's a safe neighborhood, but this person still wants to have security cameras just in case. So just in case is probably what you're looking for here. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So kind of just in case. Does anyone else have anything to add?
I thought nevertheless is almost same as despite or in spite of, but no.
Well, I am going to agree with you in this case just because these are different ways of contradicting. So, it's more of the structure because with despite living in a safe neighborhood, we should have security cameras. Nevertheless, I think is normally used at the end of the sentence. I don't really use it that often, and all the same, not either. So if we say, nevertheless, living in a safe neighborhood, that doesn't sound good at all. Again, let me see. Nevertheless, structure, sentence structure, we'll say. Okay, it's a conjunctive adverb, connects to independent clauses. Oh, okay. One, it's sometimes used with a semicolon, and the other, it could be a comma. Now, a semicolon is used, where are you here? Okay, a semicolon is this one. And when we use a semicolon, we're basically joining two sentences together. So actually, what I probably should have written, and I am not a huge fan of this expression, I should take out but and probably put this here. Oh, and that's what I didn't want. I wanted it to be blue. Okay, we live in a safe neighborhood, and nevertheless, we should have security cameras. That sounds much better to me. And so it's joining these two sentences, and as it says, we should have a comma in here. Does that make more sense, Ken?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Okay, the only thing with despite and in spite of, she slept 9 hours despite, no, that doesn't work. I'm pretty sure despite and in spite of have to be at the beginning of the sentence.
Okay.
All the same, I'm sure, like 90% sure that we would use this only at the end of the sentence. Maybe you can put a great time all the same. Yeah, I think all the same is just adding like emphasis as well. But we had a great time anyway. All right. Is this a little bit more clear now?
Oh, yes, thank you very much.
All right, good. Rafa, Rafael, any questions or comments?
No?
All right, well, that's good. So that's basically all I have for today. So we'll finish a little bit earlier than normal. One thing I like to do sometimes, let me go ahead and stop screen sharing here. They're going to say goodbye in a little bit. But different parts of grammar, things that you're interested in. Now that the three of you, I mean, Ken's a veteran now. But for Rafa and Rafael, if there's anything that you want me to teach or anything, I'm more than happy to, write it down. I have my schedule until the end of December finished. So obviously these classes wouldn't happen until January. But you're obviously more than welcome to say, hey, I'd like to learn more about this, just like the commas. So I've added a class about commas, which actually will be a good refresher for me since I haven't learned about commas in many, many years. But anything else? So any suggestions right now that you can think of? I've done conditionals multiple times, so I don't do that nowadays just because I've done it in the past. But I do love conditionals.
I think I practice my pronunciation also talking about punctuation. I still cannot understand the semicolon usage of semicolon and colon.
Semicolon.
Yeah, such things are difficult to me.
Okay, well, I'm pretty sure commas can be used in so many different ways that I'm pretty sure could be one whole class. As far as punctuation in general, I think you're right, and actually, I don't really have these in any order. Punctuation class. All right, so I'll put that in here too. This is basically a rough draft of all of the classes that I will add. So that's good. Thanks, Ken. Anything else? Yes, Ken, you're obviously included too. So.
Even though many of these adverbs or conjunctions we already know, I think we need to practice this. For example, although in my personal opinion, I think although I need to practice 1 hour in order to use properly, or even though all the conjunctions, or we can translate properly, the use of them need to be more accurate, or
accurate.
We need to practice more. At least in my case, I need to practice almost every day, 1 or 2 or 3 of these.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, that's good, and that's why I wanted them. A little bit. I've been adding like little examples, and so kind of putting a little bit more effort on you, the students. It depends who comes and things like that. But yeah, no, I completely understand. It's really good to get that practice. I do eventually have some classes. Where's my schedule for nowadays? Let's see. This was September. That's gonna go slow. October. We're on the 23rd already. Can you imagine? Concession clauses. Here we go. So now the next class is going to be about pronunciation. So can your pronunciation's in here a little. It's called Ellison, and this is something that will help make you sound more like natives. Which is, I mean, basically, let's not lie. Who doesn't want to sound like a native? Maybe not exactly like me because I'm from Wisconsin, but in general, it's important to sound, like a native a little bit. So, and that also means that you have a higher level. So that's good. Obviously, all 3 of you speak very well. I think you all have very high levels of English, so that's fantastic. But, sometimes it's nice to get the really colloquial things, the slang, I don't know, just things that natives know and use on a regular basis. So I think that's important. I am trying to put in some more kind of conversation classes. Let's see, next week we're doing more idioms because I don't think we can have enough classes about idioms. Then we're doing some more grammar about future tenses. Then we have pronunciation. So what, in 3 weeks? We'll have pronunciation with tongue twisters, and that's just fun. I mean, but it is really good for your pronunciation. So there's that, and there has to be some conversation. Then there's vocabulary. So I try and do a mix of different things, so it's not like all grammar, all conversation, all this, all that, to make it a little bit more interesting. But if there's ever anything you can think of, let me know. Okay? It helps me too because I've been working with Thomas for I think 3 years now, so I've done a lot of classes. But good, yeah. So Ken, make sure you come next time because it's pronunciation, and it should be pretty interesting. So there's not that I know. I actually should do a phonetics class because phonetics is quite difficult, and I do know some sounds by memory, but in general, not really. So I would have to learn a little bit too, which is also good for me. So maybe I'll add those to the notes, but that's it for now. So any day, anytime you think, hey, you know what, this you think of something mid-class, say, hey, let's talk about this one time. All right, so very good. Any questions or comments about anything, as always?
No, thank you, Chris.
Yeah, wonderful. Rafa?
Also, but I think we did it in other times with you. This kind of role plays, trying to use although, in spite, or whatever you teach us in grammar could be so helpful too, because I think we need to practice 3 or 4 items that you give us and make a role play. At least for me, is a very good way to
practice in the moment with real situations. No, I completely agree. I think that's great. So now I'll take that with maybe these words, you know, the conjunctions of although, even though, things like that, and put it into that for January and things. So good. You know, and it's exactly what you need. I can teach you whatever you want, but if you don't tell me what you need, then I just have to guess. So good. Well, I appreciate that. And again, think about anything. You can post it on Facebook if you remember as well, okay? So with that, we're officially finished for today. I hope that you all 3 of you have wonderful days. If it's nighttime or breakfast time or lunchtime like it is here. So we have a little bit of everything today. So everyone have a great day, and we will see you on Wednesday, hopefully, okay?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
You're welcome. Bye.
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 Bye-bye.